Colleagues, good afternoon. I've already greeted you. It's my pleasure to start with a session for this year. This is the very first workshop that we are having. We would have a lot of workshops. We continue from now until mid-November, and various topics will be there. This is an introductory session where we talk what research is, and you will see the sub-concepts there. It seems as if everybody is beginning, and I know that not everybody is beginning, but this is an ice-breaking workshop. So what I do in most cases is that I consult resources, I consult literature, and from literature, I would go and choose specific concepts, themes, and topics that support people that are conducting research. The sources that we consulted from is Mills and Becks 2014, you can see. The second one is Gay, Mills, and Arasian 2014. And most of the staff came from this latest one by Gay, Mills, and Arasian. So we will be able to engage with the resources. And yeah, this is just an icebreaker. Colleagues, this is what happens when one, for the first time, engages with the research process. The person is seen to be very ambitious. Sometimes I can refer to it as over-ambitious, because most of the beginning researchers want to research the whole world. They think they can research everything, and there is a danger there. But as you continue and you go deeper into research, you would find that your earlier expectations and your earlier perspectives change and they are modified. And that is where you become matured and you also grow in confidence and in understanding. You will be able to see what happens. So, but you also have desire that I want to do it. I must become a researcher, or I must do it in order to obtain this qualification. Maybe the qualification is needed in your employment, or you want to use it for a specific purpose. There is trepidation, you don't know what happens, hesitation, doubts. Sometimes you are frustrated. Frustration will only come when you have started to engage definitely with the process. As we speak now, there are people who started last year. During the course of the year in June, then they start to realize the reality of conducting research, particularly for obtaining their qualifications. Then they start to think, oh, maybe this is not the good thing that I've chosen. Maybe I shouldn't have done research. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have taken this topic. Or I should have just done coursework. Or I should have dropped. That is when they discover the reality, and they think they've got a perception that, oh, it is difficult to do it, which is what we're going to dispel today, because there's nothing difficult, and that frustration is what we want to throw away, so that we ensure that at the end of the day, people become excited. You have seen when someone goes for a graduation, when you are honored for the achievement, you are excited. You even think, oh, I'm going to if you have just completed your you just feel, oh, I'm just enrolled for a PhD. And if you have just completed your honors degree, oh, I'm just enrolled immediately for the M. Because this graduation comes with such excitement. Yes, things just fear and confusion. The daily experience of a beginning researcher. Colleagues, for beginning researchers, planning to undertake qualitative study is motivated by a range of factors. For some, it is a requirement of the employment that they achieve a PhD, the highest degree that the university awards. You will remember some of you are academics, or if you know any other professors, most of them would have attained PhD qualifications. Sometimes even when you seek employment, you apply, they'll say, please submit proof of your qualification. We want an M or we want a PhD, or we want an honors for this specific type of a job. So in order to get employment, you have to have a minimum qualification. And they will tell you on the job advert, they will tell you minimum qualification, PhD, honors, or M. But for the others, engaging in this type of work results from a long desire to exercise their intellect, while curiosity is a character that all potential researchers play. You must remember, whether you want to do it for academic purposes, to become a lecturer or a supervisor or a professor, or you do it for any other purpose. The point is, research is about curiosity. You're going to ask questions, and you are asking questions, you need answers. So all of us would be wanting to investigate things. And that is where your research question comes in. That is where your research topic comes in. And you must eventually find those answers through investigations. Later on, and in subsequent workshops, we will talk about the research process, and it will show you that there are stages that have to be followed. And even today, I think there is an indication of a step-by-step process that need to be followed. So that is what happens with all the research processes, inquiries. But once the decision is made to commence, most people experience trepidation, you see, doubts and frustration, and they start at prospect, quickly followed by frustration with university processes, culminating in excitement when they receive their ethics approval letter. Please go to the field, go and collect data. We are happy with the proposal. We are happy that when you collect data, you are not going to impact negatively on the research participants. And that is when you start implementing the research project. So fieldwork starts. That is after excitement, after approval from the ethics committee. For students of research, after their first initial supervisory meetings, working through potential research questions and designs, before being sent off to read and read and read, feelings of tension and confusion often begin to fill them with doubt. Colleagues, I told you that when you're starting, you are very ambitious, and you have got expectations which are not necessarily the reality of what happens during research. But as you meet your study leader or your professor, somebody who's going to supervise you, then they start revealing to you what you need to do. Then some of the things you want to understand, some of the things you will understand. But in most cases, you are moved from where you were, your understanding of research, and you start to enter the world of confusion and tension. You start to feel the doubts. And this is what we have said in the other slide. So we are indicating to you where this tension and confusion starts. Immediately when it becomes clear, or when you become aware of the task that lies ahead of you. You see, I used to tell people that research is mainly about complying with the approach, and you are guided by literature. You have got guidelines from the university and from the department under which you fall, and complying with that is not so simple, especially if you are a beginner. So if you are working very hard, you get it very well. And I'm going to dispel, you will see that later on. I'm going to tell you that research is not a difficult thing. It only needs concentration, and it only needs you to study. And you will be able to see. After 2 workshops with me, you're going to run very fast. You will see. Feelings of tension and confusion are more intense for qualitative researchers at the beginning of their career because of the complex lineage of many research designs. Colleagues, by background, I'm an environmentalist, I'm a conservator, I'm a natural scientist. But I want to tell you that I've not done hard sciences. That is why I lean towards qualitative research, and most of my classes will be mainly on qualitative research. So, but what I want to tell you is that quantitative research is not as difficult as qualitative research. You will remember that in quantitative research, When you do your data analysis and you have to subject your data, your findings from the field, you have to find a statistician to do analysis for you. Not everybody is going to analyze for himself or for herself. Not everybody is qualified to implement the software to analyze statistically for himself or herself. You see, in most cases, data analysis somebody is going to do for you. But in qualitative research, you've got a lot. You've got that latitude, that flexibility that gives you an opportunity to develop your skills and develop yourself. So you can do a lot of analysis on your own. There are softwares, NVivo and many more others that people, is it Atlas, the other one, where people, advocates, we can use this one to analyze. But genuine authors will always warn you, artificial intelligence is not yourself. You cannot replace yourself with artificial intelligence. The use of those softwares cannot replace you, because you are the researcher and you are the one who collects data, who must understand the data and must analyze. If you are using the tool, that tool must only assist you to an extent. But you are the one who structures, you are the one who analyzes, who gives meaning to the data that you have collected. So here they're trying to tell us that qualitative study is so complex in that it has got a lot of designs. And those designs is the reason why people might think that research is so difficult. And I want to tell you that if you are a social scientist, you are going to enjoy qualitative research. And this is what I enjoy. But you may find you relate to the, sorry, I want to skip this box one. In qualitative research, the mandate that the design must match the question and not the other way around makes the situation even more complicated. Because how do I then ensure that the design, I choose the correct design? How do I streamline my research work? In that the design, the research question, okay, you have got the topic at first, then you've got research questions, statement of problems, you've got purpose statement, you've got objectives, you've got literature review. Everything must be aligned. And all that is what people think makes research complicated. But you've got all the resources on earth. If you're under the University of South Africa, you've got a number of search engines. Those will assist you to locate any type of a literature that you want. And with that, you won't go wrong. And if you don't make a mistake, you did not, it is not a wrong choice to do research. It is not a wrong choice to do qualitative research. So although they're saying it is complicated if you have not studied and if you're not prepared to study. And you must study in order to grow. I tell you, in 6 months, if you're serious, you will start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And once you finish, once you complete your research proposal or your research design, you are going to feel very, very comfortable and very confident. And particularly when you finish collecting data and you analyze and submit the first draft, you're going to enjoy research and you will feel that, oh, I am late, I should have done this, or I must continue to do it so often, because it becomes so nice to know that I have a product that I've produced. I am an author. I am a researcher. I'm not just a student. I am a researching student. Beginning researchers approach their higher degree studies with a research question of sort, or at least a substantive area of inquiry that they wish to investigate. To be accepted into a program of study, a research proposal is written that includes a research design. However, there is often limited understanding of what this means in reality. Yeah, this is what this is just the author. This is just what the author is trying to show as some of the things that might appear to be hurdles. Indeed, when you have to undertake studies, you must actually indicate, you must propose how you're going to do a study. And this is the reason why they refer to a research proposal. You do it based on the literature that you have studied, reading about the topic that is there, choosing the correct approach, the methodology or the design. So all these things is what we will be able to treat and handle in our workshops. And at the end of the day, most of you will be able to go through very well. And I must tell you, I'm presenting a very basic presentation today as if everybody is starting. I know there are people who already have their proposals approved or already have initiated the preparation of their proposals. Others are in the field, are collecting data. Others are analyzing data. Others are at chapter 2, they're doing literature review. Those things we do not close our eyes on. We provide support to you on that. And you can have one-on-one. Later on, we will indicate to you how you can have one-on-one with us. And we support you at every stage, whether you are beginning, you are in the middle, you are at the end of your studies. Because our workshops, our sessions are designed to cover what appears to be the entire research process. And if I were to call it a syllabus, it would cover the entire research syllabus. So you don't have to be afraid. And here, I don't only want to refer to a research proposal. So I would refer to all chapters and all stages of the research project that one has to undergo in order to finish the research project. But as a result, it is normal for higher degree qualitative research students to spend the first 6 to 12 months of their candidature exploring not only their original methodological ideas, but also others that might provide a better fit with their research question, which is at the same time being refined. Colleagues, when I did, okay, I've done DTech.
Poured this water at my mom's house.
Yeah, sorry. Please mute if you are talking on the side. Colleagues, I want to tell you that I graduated from the University of Tshwane University of Technology, DTech in 2012. But before that graduation, for me to be accepted and to be allowed to undertake the studies, it took me a full year to prepare a research proposal, because I had my research proposal had to undergo various stages. At that stage, mine even went to the University Council, because I was researching tourism and I didn't have any undergraduate or any other degree on tourism. But the fact that I was a natural scientist student, then we had to deal with ecotourism. Then they approved me. But that whole process of approval took at least a year. I was still indicating to you that there were students who even after 12 months, after the entire academic year 2024, had not finished the preparation of their research proposal. So it shows that preparing a research proposal is actually a journey, but it requires dedication and it requires hard work. And you will be able to do it. And we are here actually to provide that support. I do know that you've got supervisors, you've got colleagues, you've got study groups, and you've got lecturers and all the resources that are there from the university. And there are other centers that also provide some of the workshops that clarify and focus on research. Those are the opportunities that you need to use. But I want to tell you that here we go over and above. We will be able to offer you a one-on-one or face-to-face interaction, where we deal with your specific request, your specific question. So I want to stop here. Colleagues, I've made an icebreaker, and just to stimulate your appetite and to touch you, to indicate how other people view research and how they view people that are starting research. And I've agreed and accepted that there are people who are senior in research that are not starting, that are continuing, that might have that might have completed other research projects before, and here they are just advancing their research skills. So you are not all beginners. So as a result, you have got the necessary competencies, and don't think that I know everything. You will be able to see that I've got in these slides I've written, I do not know everything. You can see statement number 4 there. I want to displace the notion that I know research and that you.
But I am more interested to know what is the technique that you use to start writing. As simple as that, because it has been some time now, but to get into the rhythm of writing is not there. What do you have a technique that one can then employ to start with this rhythm of? I know my supervisors will say, "Are you writing?" I'm going to be writing, but I need a rhythm. The rhythm is not there. I'm a candidate for PhD. But yeah, and when you're doing the PhD part of it, there is much more. There's no enough supervision. You are sort of you need to do this thing
Eish.
mostly with less supervision. So unlike
Yes.
when I was doing the masters where my supervisor would be giving me time frames and all that, how do I get
Yes.
into the rhythm without being supervised
Persuaded.
under you know? That's a
Eish.
question that I want to know.
Thank you very much for this question. Ntate, you know, I want to tell you something. I last had the session in mid-November last year. Then, at the after the end of the academic year, you must remember we start the Christmas festive or this holiday, and so some people used to pause there and they don't do anything. But I've told the previous people that I've engaged with in 2024 that I will be available whether it is Christmas, whether it is weekend or holiday, so that I can keep myself active and be vibrant. Now, you know, then there were this very presentation that I'm making here, and I didn't do it last year. And what I did last year, you will see on Thursday. From starting Thursday, there will be some of the presentation that I've done. But I've done a lot of research to introduce new topics to augment and to support what I was doing. And while I was doing that, I could see that I was very active. But you know, at the beginning of May, I had stopped doing research and I was anticipating, I was waiting for this session to start. After 2 weeks, I think when I started to look at these documents last week, my concentration, I was very slow in understanding. I could not even understand simple things. I prepared this presentation, I think at the beginning in January, and it was a very simple one. But when I started to revise it yesterday, I had to go through it several times, maybe 3 times, in order to understand. So I think that if you do not pause, when you are a student, you must not pause studying. Always, you must be doing something. So you are a researcher, you find answers, you need to streamline your research, reading literature that supports your statement and your approaches. And this is what I found very, very useful. But the moment you pause, you lose the momentum, then you rest. Then when you resume, then it is very hard to keep up and to be able to concentrate. That is what I have experienced. I don't know if some other people experience the same challenges. But my motivation is that let's continue to study and do it everything. You know, I have told you are a PhD student. I wanted to dispel, you see, in my slides, I have struggled when I did my first research project because I never knew what research was. I nearly failed. I nearly did not complete. But with the assistance from other colleagues, after they've assisted me, then I realized the medicine to success and in research is to study. And I noted that in everything that I wrote, I quoted a source, and justified why I'm using a specific approach. Then I found that my research, my study leaders or my promoters will never shoot me down. Neither did the external examiners shoot me because everything that I did, I motivated from literature. And I found that studying is the key of success. Did I make a contribution?
No, you did, Doc. You did. I think you just said it. The only way to start studying is to start studying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let me motivate you. You're doing very good if you're doing your PhD. Then you're going to prove that everything is. Remember, PhD is the last qualification. It's the highest qualification that universities may offer. I don't know what postdoctoral is, but I think if you've got a PhD, you have just done it. Then you will see that everything is possible because some of the professors, there isn't many professors that do have postdoctoral studies. Most of them are just professors because they've done a lot of papers that they've written. They've got experience in teaching, in facilitating, in conducting research. So you are nearly there. And that is a good thing. But I want to say to everybody here, this is a research workshop. I don't know. Colleagues, I'm not a lecturer. And I'm not a study leader. I don't supervise anybody. I just have this opportunity. I'm an independent contractor. And my job is actually to engage with literature on research, with people that are conducting research. So it's unfair to expect that I will lecture or I will teach. And what I do here is to facilitate the process of conducting research. Then, in other words, I provide the guidance. This is how I think research should happen. And in some instances, in some of the workshops, you will see that I go to my previous projects while I was still a student, and I pick up specific sections so that I can motivate and make a comparative analysis with what literature says and with what I have done. And the good thing is that I'm not shy to tell you that I've gone wrong in some cases, because some of the things I'm only discovering them now because I'm studying. And what makes me study is yourselves, because I know that I'm going to come across you. When you ask me questions, then you force me to go and write and read and study and come and debate with you. But the other thing that I want to encourage is that all of us should study literature about research, so that when we come here, we are debating it. There is nobody, I cannot feed anybody, and I cannot force anybody to understand a concept. But you can understand a concept if you study. And you have got a choice of literature. The two literature that I've consulted here are just an example. You've got better publications that might have been publicized yesterday or in 2024. Mine are all in 2014. From 2014 to date, it's more or less 11 years. They are more or less outdated. But there are concepts that have not changed from there. That is where I enjoy. And when you read a recent book, you find that some of them repeat what has been written by old literature. But where there is change, that is where I encourage. Where there is change, we must also be able to adapt. Let's read journals. Journals are more updated than books because they are recent, they are today, they are conference papers and so on that are presented. So let us all go and study and prepare. When we come here, you see at the end of this session, we indicate the next topic that is there. And you might have seen the next topic that has been circulated that we will deal with on Thursday. So on that one, do read, do study. And when you come here, then you listen to what I present here. I present the author's perspective. And I want you and I to critically say, yes, here he is writing substance, but here how he is going out of course, or I don't agree with him, or he is good, but this is not what I want to do. But I prefer author number 2 than author number 3. And this is the approach that I want us all to adopt. And if we do that, you are going to enjoy these sessions and you're going to enjoy doing your research project. Because for your research project, you're going to choose a specific research approach, specific methodology. Your purpose statement will be yours. Your research topic will be yours. Then anything that you write, you justify. And the strategy to justify is to study and say that Creswell says this and this. Keane says this and that. And this is the reason why I want to follow them, because it is in line with my thinking, with my topic and purpose statement or problem statement. So I will make presentations, but I allow you actually to engage. During the course of our engagement, I will inform you of all monthly topics so that you can go and research them, so that we all engage during the workshops. It's a repetition, I've said that. But the literature source that I will use, you can study, but you can also use yours as long as we discuss the concept that is there on the workshop today. But if you've got something that you don't want us to discuss in open here, then there is that platform where we have one-on-one and we deal with it. Even if you differ, don't be shy if you differ with what I understand. No. And don't be shy to say this author there is not good. And don't be shy to say, yeah, that one is also good. And don't be shy, in other words, to show your views, because that is how we grow and that is how we learn. And some of you might be coming from organizations where you work, where you are employed. You are facilitators and you are leaders. So you must not be shy, because what you study is what you should be able to apply in your field. So the books and the study material that we present here is just guidelines, and they must just stimulate discussions. Now here, this is one quotation from one of the authors. They say, although research problems should not be assigned or they should not be proposed and allotted by a guide, but consultation with more experienced faculty member or research worker is a desirable practice. One of the most important functions of the research guide is to help the student clarify his thinking, achieve a sense of focus, and develop a manageable problem from one that may be vague and too complex. You are going to experience this, that specific research leaders or study leaders, specific supervisors or professors have got their area of interest and area of expertise. I said qualitative research is my interest. I'm not empowered. I'm not good at quantitative. Where I came across quantitative part of research is when I was doing mixed methods, and it was when I was doing my first research project. But the fact that everybody has got an interest or has got a field of specialization means that when you come across a study leader or a supervisor, you must also know that they have got that capacity or they don't have interest in other areas. And when they guide you, they will be very good in areas where they're good, where they've got expertise or they've got interest. And the likelihood is when they guide you, some of them might channel you, why don't you research like this? Why don't you do like this? So that they can better supervise you. But the danger that I want to tell you is don't do what a study leader wants. Now, I will tell you what I mean by that. The university does have guidelines on research, guidelines on ethics, or a policy on ethics. Each department, whether it is education, law, environmental, and agriculture, do have their own guidelines on how to conduct research. You see, that you have to comply with. Further to that, if a lecturer does have guidelines, that lecturer might want you also to follow the guidelines that are there. Apart from that, what I've said is they've got specific expertise and specific interest. So they can say, okay, also do it this way. So be careful. And I want to say it because when I want to study something, I will want to study that. But the truth is, I cannot deviate. I cannot run away from my supervisor. I must still be supervised. Otherwise, I will not finish. So you've got to play the ball of what you want to do and of what you are advised. There are things that you have to do. Those things that you don't have to do, and there is flexibility. They give you an opportunity to pursue your ambitions. And when we research, we don't want to research for purposes of passing, and we don't want to research for purposes of complying with the M degree or PhD degree only. No, that PhD degree is actually channeled towards assisting me, my advancement in life. Is it at work? Is it in social life? Is it any other? Is it in employment or whatever? That is what I think all of us should do. Now, we have already said that the workshop is being recorded. And Cecily Ndelo said that, and UNISA Gauteng Region YouTube platform. That is where you would access the one-on-one sessions on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Fridays. We do not have these workshops. Then those days I have reserved them, and they are open for one-on-one sessions. And on the other hand, you can ask questions via emails to me. My address will be there, and if it is not there, say, oh, actually it is there. You can see there, macherehc@gmail.com. Cecily Ndelo will also be able to give you. I can also be able to write it on the screen before we part. So if you want to communicate another thing to me, you can use that email. In the past, and even today, I allow people to share with me written material which they think I can make a comment. Then we can start debating from the products that they have. I can make a contribution. I can indicate to you, if it were me, this is how I would write a purpose statement. Or I can ask you, why do you write the purpose statement like this if the research topic is that? Then I can also trick you, assist you to align your topic, your problem statement, your purpose statement, your research objectives, your literature review, your everything until the last chapter, so that you can streamline. By the way, I do have a presentation on streamlining your research project to ensure that you don't go out at tangent. If you are researching the animals, research the animals. If you are researching baboons, you are researching the baboons. So streamlining assists us in doing that one.
The one-on-one, are we expected to have some sort of financial injection to them, or UNISA is covering that? Or I needed to get that clarity so that we should not be seen as abusing you in the process. So I wanted to check that part.
You see, for all the services that I offer, UNISA is going to cover the financial part of it. So the one-on-one, the bouncing of the documents with me, and all of it is covered by UNISA. And I'll do anytime at the cost of the university. There is no cost on your side, by the way.
Okay, cool. I know in the zone if it's like that, will be there.
Yes, but there is something here which I can tell you now. I think Cecily Ndala will tell you that I did promise everybody that if the university closes, research work does not close. It continues during Christmas and during holidays. If there are days on which UNISA would not have closed, I said I would be able to support everybody. And I noted that the take on this is very little. It will be 2 or 3 people that would approach me during festive holidays. So I'm available whether it is Christmas or whether it is New Year. That one, I don't even expect UNISA to pay me because it is outside the policy. And I just do it to ensure that you don't lose the momentum. You continue to study. Don't say, no, the university is closed, but we cannot access him. We cannot engage. We don't have anybody to engage with. You see, I am open for everything. And I will tell you why. It benefits me because I'm also learning and I'm developing and growing in the process. It's not only yourselves. That is why I said I don't know everything. You will even find that some of the things you know better than I do, you will discover it during the time, the course of the discussion. And even when you have one-on-one with me, you would say, oh, that one he doesn't understand. Oh, that one doesn't understand. But the time you engage with me and I discover that you know better than me, I go and study. Next time I engage you. So be free to engage me at any time. Now, colleagues, we say this program is for all levels, for all the people. Qualitative research, I will support you. But we acknowledge that some of you are at a more senior or advanced level of conducting academic research, master's or PhD. Mr. Matume is doing his PhD, so it's not his first time to conduct research. He might have done several research, he might have written papers, might submitted research reports, passed. And so he is here. But look, some of you might be doing honors, some of you might be doing M. So all of you are here. We are saying this service is there, it's open for you for use. But for this reason, the topic coverage of the program is relatively comprehensive in order to cater for the needs of academic researchers at all levels. Now, Geymans and Arosian, they believe that an introductory research course should be more oriented towards skill and application than toward theory. Now, I've just copied these guys' statements because the approach that we're going to adopt in here, we not, although a presentation, a workshop, assist us to understand the concepts, we debate about them, what they mean, and what different authors are saying. Then the other most important aspect is that how do we apply specific concept in the field? And that outcome-based education. So we will be able to rub shoulders with material, but the ultimate intention is that a person must be able to produce a research report. In other words, you must be able to design a research project. You will do it when you are doing a research proposal. You are actually designing a research project. After you have designed that one, it is only sanctioned when you have got an ethical clearance from the ethics committee from your department or from the university. In that case, you should be able to go to collect data in the field, or you should be able to do chapter 2 or which chapter of literature. Then eventually, if you start with chapter 2, already you've passed the designing stage. You already are doing actual research. You must remember you're doing literature research, and that literature research might be part and parcel of answering one of your research objectives. And some of the research objectives will be answered when you go to the field to collect data. So the ultimate end is that you need to finalize that research, literature search. You must be able to collect data. You must be able to analyze data. You must be able to report data and present it until it is taken for examination internally and eventually external examination, and a qualification is awarded after you would have defended. Some institutions would require that at PhD level, you actually defend what you do. So we're not doing this theoretically only. We want this to be applied in the field. So that is the skill that we want people to have. The purpose of this program is to empower students to become familiar with research, mainly at a how to. To do it will be documented in your research proposal, because I said your research design is mainly contained in your research proposal. That is where you've got the methodology, the approach, and the process that you will follow. That is the skill that is needed. And then at the application level, I've already made a reference to fieldwork that must be executed. We do not want to mystify students with theoretical and statistical jargon. Yes, I wouldn't be interested in statistics because I less knowledge on that one. But we will strive to provide a down-to-earth approach that helps students acquire the skills and knowledge required of a competent consumer and producer of educational research. A consumer is a person who studies and who receives the outcomes of research and consumes. You study literature that is written or produced by other researchers. So you are a consumer. But that the process of consumption empowers you to be a producer of educational research. And part of this engagement that we're having in here actually touches on us being consumers and touches on us being producers of the research products. The emphasis is not just on what the student knows, but also on what the student can do with what he or she knows. You will understand what qualitative research is, but what do you do with it? The good thing is, when you are able to actually implement or execute qualitative research, that is what we said as the end goal of our engagement. It is recognized that being a good researcher involves more than the acquisition of the skills and knowledge. In any field, important research is usually produced by those who, through experience, have acquired insights, intuitions, and strategies related to the research process. And this is what studying will result in. We'll have intuitions, insights, and would then master and understand strategies. And out of those strategies, then we choose that which we think will assist us to achieve our research objectives. And this is the reason why we always say you have to justify the choice of an approach. So a strategy that I choose must support my research topic. It must support, and it is also in line with my statement of problem, my research purpose, my methodology. So maybe that strategy is part and parcel of the methodology, but let us justify why we choose a specific strategy. Colleagues, some of the statements that I mentioned here will be reiterated and will be repeated until the last workshop, because they are just the core of what research is all about. Research anywhere, however, is rarely conducted in the absence of basic research skills and knowledge. We are developing that. Now, we adopted Mills and Arrasian's assumptions that the competencies required of a competent consumer of research overlap considerably with those required of a competent producer of research. You see, you cannot make a distinction. You cannot differentiate between a competent producer of research and a competent consumer. A competent consumer eventually becomes a competent producer of research because a competent producer of research has consumed research output or research product. So the two just resides in one. So a researcher is both a consumer and a producer of research. A person is in a much better position to evaluate the work of others after she or he has performed the major tasks involved in the research process. Now, how have we structured this program, colleagues? This program is divided into 5 parts, and I'm going to run through them very, very quickly. Part 1 includes discussion of the scientific and disciplined inquiry approach and its application, the main steps in the research process, and the purpose and methods of the various approaches to research as discussed. And in part 1, we also require that each student, or we anticipate that each student will select and delineate a research problem of interest that has relevance to his or her professional area. Colleagues, you must remember you come from different departments. If you are from the Department of Education, you are in education in your discipline. The other one is a lawyer. The other one is an environmentalist. The other one an economist. The other one is from a medical field and so on. All of you, remember, it means your proposals, your research projects would be relevant to the discipline to which you belong. So when we go through all the concepts, the understanding is that each one would take the concepts and apply them to their discipline. And because we are not a discipline specific here, we just overall, this is an overall approach to how to conduct qualitative research. So it must be customized by the researcher or the student to what they are doing. So we believe that in the proposal, that is where you internalize, that is where you demonstrate understanding of these concepts. And how we will see it is when you succeed in producing a research plan or a research design or a proposal. And this, the study leader would say, yes, this is correct. Sometimes if you've bounced it with me, I would say, I want to understand, what do you say here? Why do you take this approach? Then you justify. Oh, you didn't. When a third person or a second person reads, they don't understand what you mean. Can you please improve or revise? And I want to tell you that people that have worked with us and whose work we have seen, some of them have even come to us. We have done very well because we have been part and parcel of your program. The other one, the latest person who spoke to me is from the College of Environment and Agriculture, and that person got 2 distinctions in the modules that she was doing, and she was so grateful. I've got that information that I've captured. So it's important. So we are not going to be discipline specific. So we have structured the course to be able to allow flexibility and to allow people to develop projects on their own, but we engage with them every time. Throughout the rest of the program, the student then simulates the procedures that would be followed in conducting a study designed to investigate the problem. This is what I said. In your research proposal, you will demonstrate if you understand the concepts. And if you don't understand, then we are here, and the study leader is there, your colleagues are there, and anybody else who can provide support is there. So we are there to touch base with you to see if indeed you are understanding what we're discussing. Each workshop develops a specific skill or set of skills required for the execution of such a research study. And this is the reason why in each of the 5 stages, stage 1, for example, is an introductory part on research. And in there, we have packaged the important things that are forerunners. If someone is starting research, you will see we also treat the preparation of proposal, conducting literature review. That is in part 1. But as we move down until the last phase, where report is produced, every phase, every section would have a specific focus, and a number of workshops are presented there. And I think we don't present less than 30 workshops. We will even go beyond if there's need. If time is available at UNISA, we'll even go beyond 30. We can go up to 35, and it will depend on yourselves and the time that is available. Specifically, the student learns about the application of the scientific method in their respective discipline. I've said this, and the ethical considerations that affect the conduct of any research. For your research proposal and research designs to be approved, we have made reference to the ethical clearance. It is an important consideration. You are not allowed to go to the field if you don't ethically demonstrate that you would not harm the research participants. The student identifies a research topic and formulates research questions, conducts a review of related literature, develops a research plan, selects and defines samples, and evaluates and selects measuring instruments. All of these are packaged in part 1 and in part 2. I think when we talk about sample, it might be in part 2. But you see, we package everything that has to do with all the concepts that a person must understand and must go through when we are conducting a research project. Throughout these workshops, throughout these workshops are parallel discussions of qualitative research constructs. Now, this organization will with increased emphasis on ethical consideration in the conduct of research and the skills needed to conduct a comprehensive review of related literature, allows the student to see the similarities and differences in research approaches and to understand more fully how the nature of the research question influences the selection of a research method. These we will deal with. And colleagues, what we do here, remember, we don't present what is geared towards one person. So because there are a number of research approaches, we try to present all of them so that participants can have a choice. They need to decide that, no, I like this approach. Then we deal with this. Here we will generically deal with all approaches that we know. And when somebody wants us to zoom into those, we will zoom into those. And when somebody wants a private and a particular and a focused discussion on a specific approach or a methodology that he wants, that is when one-on-one comes. But part 2 focuses the workshop on research design, while part 3 focuses on data collection. That is where sampling comes in. Part 4 looks at data analysis, and part 5 focuses on helping the student prepare a research report, either for the completion of a degree requirement, for publication in a referred journal, and for communicating the results to stakeholders. All of these, we do have specific workshops on them. Everything that I'm mentioning here, you will see is part and parcel of our workshop. And I've just looked at everything that we'll cover in the entire year, and I listed in here. And this program represents more than just a textbook to be incorporated into a course. It is a total instruction system that includes stated learning outcomes, instruction, and procedures for evaluating each outcome. You know what I do? And when I'm using a resource or any of the literature that I've consulted, I check what the specific outcomes are in terms of that author. I take those, and in some instances, I take them verbatim. And what I do is to make sure that actually when I cover the contents and the resources provided by that person, it means we're going to cover that. But it also gives us an opportunity to be flexible. If we feel that there are other additional skills and outcomes that we want to see on our side when we engage with the resource materials, we can add, or we can also remove something that we do not want. The instructional strategy of the system emphasizes the demonstration of skills and individualization within this structure. That individualization that they refer to here is that everybody does have a proposal at the end of the day. That is individualization, apart from engaging on the resources with us in this workshop. Each workshop begins with a list of learning outcomes that describes the knowledge and skills that the student should gain from the chapter. In many instances, learning outcomes may be assessed either as ability to prepare chapters of the research report, there, you see, or participation during the workshops. You see, here, what I encourage is that you don't have to keep quiet. That is why from time to time I will pause, give you an opportunity to indicate how far you are with me. If I'm losing you, you must indicate. And if I make some other concept difficult or you don't understand me, you have to question me, to ask me questions, or you have to make an input to make it simpler for yourself. So others will be listening to you. And don't be scared. I think matured people are not afraid to be known that they don't know or to be known that they know. I do believe that there's no one who's going to outshine others. It's only to contribute to what we're doing. And I would like your engagement, colleagues. In most workshops, a task to be performed is described next. Yeah, that is when we finish here, we'll indicate what we will do on Thursday. Task requires students to demonstrate that they can perform particular research functions in relation to the stage of their research process. Because each student works with a different research problem, each student demonstrates the competency required by a task as it applies to his or her own problem and at various levels of the research process. Program discussion is intended to be as simple, as straightforward, and as possible. And whenever feasible, procedures are presented as a series of steps and concepts are explained in terms of illustrative examples. Case studies. This is where I said in some workshops, I've made a point that I take examples from my experience. When I was conducting research, where I've gone wrong, where I've done well, then we compare it with what the source that we are reading is saying. If the author is saying something and I've done something, I'll indicate. Then I have to justify what I've done, why I've done something. And if I've done an error, then I would indicate here, my experience in research was not yet matured. I was still starting, or I've got a different understanding. Because a researcher is able to stand on his own. You are allowed to differ with a professor. Even if you are doing honors, you are allowed to differ with a professor if you are doing master's or PhD, because they have written because of their experiences. Remember, some of the authors would have written books in Europe, some in Asia, some in USA, and you are in South Africa. You're not in the Middle East. The South African context is not like in the Middle East. It's not like in Europe. So when I conduct research in Thohoyandou, the context of the Chivenda culture is there. The environmental context that it is very hot is not like Cape Town or it's not like Free State. It is there. So my experience when I'm conducting research differs from other contexts. And that you will be able to see this as we continue with other concepts. So these things will become clear when we continue. In a number of cases, relatively complex topics or topics beyond the scope of the text are presented at a very elementary level, and students are directed to other sources for additional in-depth discussion. No, this is not exactly what I think will happen. What will happen is sometimes we want to be able to touch all topics in every workshop in details, because a specific workshop has a specific focus, but it might make reference to other processes or other concepts in passing. So the details of some concepts would not be covered. So if there is need, then in the next workshop, then we focus on those that we have touched superficially in the present workshop. There is also a degree of intentional repetition. A number of concepts are discussed in different contexts and from different perspectives. Yes, because research is reiterative. And what you would hear from the introduction to your study, when you're writing a background to the study, is what you will still experience when you do literature review. Because your background to the study is actually a synopsis, it's a summary about the topic. And that topic you summarize through studying literature, but you don't do it exhaustively. You just strategically go through your literature. But as you go to literature review or chapter 2 or chapter 3, then you bring the details of literature. So when you do literature in chapter 2, you are repeating some of the statements or some of the concepts. You are clarifying them better and more, as opposed to what has happened in the introductory section. So this is what I mean when I said research is reiterative. Some statements would be repeated, some processes are repeated because of the reiterative nature. So you go forth and backwards, forth and backwards. That is why when you go forward, you find that, no, I've discovered a new understanding about these concepts. You go back now to the first chapter. Now you revise it. You move forward. Oh, a new thing, you revise it. That is why the only time that you can write the introduction to your studies is when you have completed your studies. Let me pause a little bit. When I say introduction, I'm going to start now with the different concepts now. But I've touched the things briefly and to indicate how we will approach and how we've organized our work. And what I've said is what is going to take us from now and to the end of November when we close the academic year. So you can say something if you want to say something now. I've paused and then I continue after you would have engaged me. You will see, you will become more comfortable as we continue with these workshops because you will see that they are enjoyable. Maybe today you are still a bit sensitive or not yet there, but you will see that it's so simple. But colleagues, you might be taking this course in order to complete your studies. Oh, you see, this is reiterative and repetition. Or you might be taking this course because it is interesting. Earlier on, I said you might be taking doing research because you want to be appointed to be employed as an academic or in another research organization. And you are not just here on your free will. You see? But the thing is, whether you are here for academic purposes or here to actually achieve something that will make you better employable, the hurdles and the enjoyment of doing research would be the same. Your professors have several legitimate reasons for believing this research course is an essential component of your education. Now, maybe your professors wouldn't even know which ones you are attending because the university offers a lot of guidance and there are a lot of centers that actually treat research and present research sessions. But first, educational research findings significantly contribute to both educational theory and educational practice. As a professional, you need to know how to find, how to understand, and evaluate these findings. That is what a professional researcher should be able to do. We have said you are a consumer of the research product, but we said you are also a producer. And if you're not a producer, actually, by doing research, you will, at the end of the day, produce some good document, some research work. So you are a producer. In other words, that is why they say you should be able to know how to find and how to understand and evaluate the findings of research. And when you encounter research findings in professional or in the media, you have a responsibility as a professional to distinguish between legitimate and ill-founded research claims. When we deal with literature review, you will be able to find that there are other literature sources that are not credited and others are credited. So when this is the skill that you must master, and there are ways of doing it. We'll talk about it. Whether a journal that claims to be an accredited journal is accredited or not, that you should be able to do. There are various strategies and ways in which you can do that. So when you do that, you must know that you are actually growing and you are evolving, you are becoming a professional researcher and you are growing in your skills. So second, although many of you will be primarily critical consumers of research, some of you will decide to become educational researchers. You see now, this is what we've already said. So the reason for studying might be that I want to be a researcher, or I don't only want to be a student, to be a student, but I must also research and produce something that other people can consume. A career in research opens the door to a variety of employment opportunities. Now, I'm touching on what I've said earlier on. In universities such as the University of South Africa, where professors and doctors, all of them, have got this qualification because they have studied and they've conducted research. But in research centers, you can be employed by virtue of you having that master's or having the PhD. In South Africa, we have got research organizations that are parastatals. The Water Research Commission under the Department of Water and Sanitation, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, I don't know which department this one falls under. Is it Science and Technology? And National Research Fund, this one actually is Science and Technology. And in business, you have got what you refer to as R&D, where the R&D, these are the people that do market research and they look at the needs of their customers and then they develop products so that they can sell to them. So that is why this department that does that for them is referred to as research and development. So all these areas are potential areas where researchers can get employment. Despite a popular stereotype that depicts researchers as spectacled, stoop-shouldered, elderly gentlemen who endlessly add chemicals to test tubes, every day thousands of men and women of all ages and postures conduct educational research in a wide variety of settings. Here they're just showing you that people have got perceptions about researchers. Just because they know that researchers, most of them conduct equipments, carry research in a laboratory. So there is a perception that the researchers would dress like this and behave like this and only work in a laboratory, which is not true. We work outside. You are not in a laboratory. You are researchers. So we are hearing here that every day women and men of all ages and postures, they conduct educational research in a wide variety of settings. This is about Guy and friends who are suggesting this. And in their book, when I read where I got these instruments, they've got an elderly person who has got spectacles, who has got laboratory equipment with him, seated there conducting experiment to show what perceptions we have. So here the book is telling us, the author is telling us that that perception is not the only truth about researchers. There are researchers like yourselves and like me who are not in a laboratory. Every year, many millions of rands are spent in the quest for knowledge related to teaching and learning. And here, I want to indicate to you, if you can just look in red there, this is about the University of South Africa in 2022, that it received a total of 51.3 million in grant funding, with NRF grant funding accounting to 29. You see, the research fund, NRF is National Research Fund. It actually supported the University of South Africa by providing research funding about 29.2 million. And non-grant funding increased to 19.4 million. And I think this is all about research. But the last statement in red there, I indicate that the Department of Water and Sanitation charges a research levy on water use, so that this research levy contributes to the budget of one of the South African water research entity. There is a water research entity attached to the Department of Water and Sanitation. And then the department on an annual basis budgets for that. And where do they get the money? When they sell water, a portion of what they receive from water use charges is set aside to support research on water. Now, this is just an indication to show that research is a serious aspect, and it is a tool for investigating, and it is an activity which some organizations cannot thrive without. Your university, for an example, cannot thrive without conducting research. From year to year, if you read from the web, you can find the South African universities are actually sometimes graded in terms of the one that is a leading researcher, a institution of higher learning that is leading research institutions in South Africa. The universities are graded like that. And sometimes your universities are also ranked internationally if they are there in the top 10 African best universities. Your University of Cape Town, the Stellenbosch, your Wits University, sometimes they rank high And sometimes the University of South Africa, you see, your university is one of the best universities in the world because you don't only have South African students that are studying. You go to some of the countries. If you go to Ghana, if you go to Egypt, sometimes you find centers of UNISA. And you find people that are registered there with UNISA that are studying part-time or full-time. They write exams there and they are invigilated there. So this is a very strong university with a footprint in the African continent. I don't know if it does not have centers overseas. This one you can answer when I pause. But it does research, and it is also acknowledged that it contributes to an extent on research. So research is a serious aspect. As educational research has contributed many findings concerning principles of behavior, learning, and the retention of knowledge, many of which can also be applied to curriculum, instructional materials, and assessment techniques. That is, if we were to talk about people that are researching on education. They produce things that assist people to learn. They produce a curriculum. They write books on educational approaches, strategies for education, empowerment of the teaching community, the teachers and the lecturers, refresher courses. And some of them, you see, when you have conferences where people present papers, that is part and parcel of research. And this is one way in which you enhance education. So that is the contribution of research. Research is not there for the sake of it. It actually contributes to advancement of human, social, and economic development and nation building. Both the quantity and the quality of research are increasing, partly because researchers are better trained. And this is the reason why we have these workshops. And this is the reason why the University of South Africa trains researchers. All other universities are doing the same. The other universities are full-time and they don't have part-time, or they're not distance learning per se. But yours is primarily distance learning, although other people, other students are full-time. Educational research classes have become core components of pre-services teacher education programs, as well as cornerstone of advanced degree programs. And what we're doing here is part of an advanced degree program, because this is postgraduate and we're focusing on conducting research. I recognize that research is a relatively unfamiliar discipline for many, and we who are actually thinking that we understand or we've done research, we still grapple with the concept of research and a number of concepts under research. My first goals then are to help you acquire a general understanding of research processes and to help you develop the perspective of a researcher. Then I begin by examining the scientific method. Now we're going to start to delve into some of the research concepts. And we're going to start today talking about what the scientific method is, which is the next slide. And here, the slide says, what is knowledge and how do we come to know something? Colleagues, we can acquire knowledge scientifically, or we can informally acquire knowledge. And there are ways in which we acquire knowledge which would be recognized, be acknowledged as part of the formal research process. Some of it would not be. And that is the reason why we later on would talk about the steps and stages, various processes that must be followed when we conduct research. And that is why when a person did not follow the correct, if you don't document correct scientific research methods, you won't be able to follow that one. And if you document something and you don't go and follow it when you go to the field, the study leader and anybody else or an external examiner will pick that up. That no, this guy has written a good approach, but the findings do not show that he followed what he proposed. Or this gentleman was not able to document the research procedures or the methodology correctly, although he has been able to collect data correctly or analyze it correctly. So that is why we talk about streamlining sometimes. You must be able to design and be able to implement and following the correct research procedures. Experience is certainly one of the fundamental ways we come to know about and understand our world. So we can develop knowledge or acquire knowledge through experience. That is why when we're growing, we know that if we touch fire, then we will be burnt. That is experience. Then we know that fire is hot and it can burn or it will hurt you. For an example, a child who touches something hot lens that high heat has. So this is what I've said. We know other things because a trusted authority such as a parent or a teacher told us about them. And apart from experiencing on my own, when I'm growing, I'm guided by my parents and my peers and my brother, elder sisters, elder brothers. They will guide you. Don't jump up and down. Don't move in the road. You will be knocked by a vehicle. All these things are guidance. But at the end of the day, they build up into my knowledge and my understanding of the world and the environment around me. So this is one way in which you can know and where knowledge can develop. Most likely, much of your knowledge of current world events comes secondhand from things that you have read or heard from a source you trust. You see, we are in a research module or a research course here. You see, how do we understand data collection? How do we understand sampling? We read it from an author. We read it from Jay, we read it from Mills, we read it from the book authored by Gay. So we are actually developing knowledge from secondhand. We have read or we've read. We've read other people making presentations in workshops or in our undergrads. Our lecturers were teaching us what research methods are, what the research process is. So our knowledge about research is started to build up and started to emerge until today. But another way we come to know something is through thinking and through reasoning. And reasoning refers to the process of logical thoughts to reach a conclusion. We can reason inductively or deductively. Inductive reasoning involves developing generalization based on observation of a limited number of related events or experiences. And then there's an example here that we can show. Say, for instance, we observe an instructor examines 5 textbooks, that is inductively collected data. Then he finds that, 5 books, all of them have got a chapter on sampling. Then he generalizes. Then he says, no, this means that all research textbooks contain a chapter on sampling. You will see later on, I will refer to challenges referring to the reasoning as part of acquiring the knowledge. But although people commonly use experience, authority, inductive reasoning, and deductive reasoning to learn new things and draw new conclusions from that knowledge, each of these approaches to understanding has limitations when used in isolation. Mark the word or underline isolation. So these, the use of experience, authority, inductive and deductive reasoning can assist us to learn new things. But we are saying when used in isolation or when you only use one of them, there are limitations. So in other words, they're telling us limitations can be closed if we use more than one, or we use these approaches of knowing in combination. And it will also become clear later on when we explore further concepts. Some problems associated with experience and authority as sources of knowledge are graphically illustrated in a story told about Aristotle. Now, I want to show you, there's an example here, which I think it was part and parcel of the investigation which was conducted by Aristotle. This guy caught a fly and he then counted the legs. Then he announces that the fly, then he announces that all flies do have 5 legs. And this is mainly because when he caught a fly, his fly had a missing leg. And now you see, this is a mistake and a limitation that we are going to show to you. You see, if he only looked at one of the flies, he caught a wrong fly that had a broken leg. So he only found that they've got 5. Instead, flies do have 6 legs, according to this author. You see, the fly that Aristotle caught happened to be missing a leg. Whether or not you believe the story, it illustrates the limitations of relying on personal experience and authority as sources of knowledge, and also relying on one source of information as a way of gathering knowledge. Because if this guy has used another way of knowing, if he has inquired from other people who have caught more than one flies, they would have said, no, and in Lebanon or in Cape Town, no, I counted flies, I found them, they've got 6 legs. This guy would not have concluded that a fly had 5 flies. And this guy, I think he published this, and a lot of people used to know that flies only have 5 legs until later on his information was refuted. The story also points out a potential problem with inductive reasoning, generalizing from a small sample, especially one that is atypical. It can lead to errors. That is why I said if there were more, if he had caught more flies than one, some flies would have original legs, all 6 legs. Then he would find, oh, most of the flies have got 6. It is only one that has got 5. Maybe there is an error here. And he would eventually find out that no, he would issue a statement that actually flies have got 6 legs. So this is how information knowledge is gathered. And now there is an error in terms of the approach. So in research, now they are warning us because in research, then we must be careful on the approaches that we use. And in some instances, this guy, remember, took one fly. We will talk about sampling, which is a representation of the general population, which we think the findings should relate to all. This is an error. And in research, there is an error of margin which is allowed. So we'll not deal much with that error because it belongs to quantitative research. But suffice to say that if you use one approach, an error would not be closed. But if you use a lot, then you close the error. You are close to the truth. Deductive reasoning, too, is limited to the evidence in the original observations. If every research text really does have a chapter on sampling, and if this book, the one that I've read, really is a research text, then it follows that this book must have a chapter on sampling. However, if one or more of the premises is false, your conclusions may also be wrong. You see, not all research books have got a chapter on sampling, because others are not even written about data collection. Others are only written about data analysis. Others are written about designing a research. Others are written about the research approach. So a person who has read few books and only come across those that talk about that have got chapters on sampling design can have a wrong conclusion, because he used logic that if I found 5 that all of them have got this chapter on sampling, then it means everyone does have that. That is logical thinking, and he tries to use that as generalization. And he has used inductive reasoning because he conducted the research first, and then he used the findings to make a general statement. So later on, we'll talk about all these things. When we rely exclusively on those common approaches to knowing, the resulting knowledge is susceptible to error and may be of limited value to understanding the world beyond our immediate experiences, as in the case of the flies. However, experience, authority, and inductive and deductive reasoning are very effective when used together as integral components of the scientific method. Now you see now, I said if you use it solely alone, the error is there and it would not be closed. But if you combine them, the other approach is going to close an error found in another approach, whereas its errors will also be closed by other approaches. So this is what they're saying in this statement. The scientific method is an orderly process containing a number of steps. Now, here I'm reading the scientific steps that are there in scientific research. They are recognition and definition of a problem. This is the problem statement that you must have. Now, they are touching on the components of your research and the research project. Formulation of hypothesis, that's mainly in quantitative research. Collection of data, though, in all research approaches. Analysis of data, and you know that this will happen. And statement of conclusions regarding confirmation or disconfirmation of hypothesis. This hypothesis also is mainly there in quantitative, but more of the most of these stages are generic to other quantitative and qualitative research. That is, a researcher forms a hypothesis, an explanation for the occurrence of certain behaviors, phenomena, or events as a way of predicting the results of research study, and then collects data to test that prediction in quantitative research. We don't always do a hypothesis in qualitative research. These steps, the steps that I said are scientific research steps. They can be applied informally to solve such everyday problems as the most efficient route to take from home to work. It is said here, they're just suggesting that those scientific approaches, you can still apply them in other situations. Apart from conducting research, it can be used in your daily life. You can use that as a benefit because you are a researcher. The more formal application of the scientific method is standard in research. It is more efficient and more reliable than relying solely on experience, authority, inductive reasoning, and deductive reasoning as sources of knowledge. So that is step-by-step processes have to be done. So in other words, step number 5, you cannot in research start by step number 5, which is producing a research report. Before you can collect data, you can have a proposal, you can design, and you can analyze data. You only have the research report because you have undergone all the other stages. And this is the reason why that is called stage number 5, or the last stage. The steps in the scientific method guide researchers in planning, in conducting, and interpreting research studies. That is the scientific method. We will repeatedly say this because we said research is reiterative. However, it is important to recognize some limitations of the method. Now, what are the limitations of the scientific method? First, the scientific method cannot answer all questions. For an example, applying the scientific method will not resolve the question, should we legalize euthanasia? You all know that euthanasia is the termination of life when somebody is actually in deep pains, and pain appears to be irrecoverable. So in some countries, euthanasia can be legalized or cannot be legalized. Then we are hearing here that that question cannot be solved by conducting research. So research has got some limitation. The answers to questions like these, this one, are influenced by personal philosophy, values, and ethics. Is it ethical to terminate someone's life? Do you feel happy when you are killing somebody, or when you are allowing somebody to terminate his life just because he's in deep pain? That has to do with ethics. It cannot be answered by conducting the research scientifically, following all those stages, thinking that you will be able to solve it. But second, application of the scientific method can never capture the full richness of the individuals and the environments used, the environment under study, because every environment is dynamic. So what you found yesterday is not there tomorrow. It changes by tomorrow, or it's no longer there, or other events or other activities intrude and they form part and parcel of the research setting or the context in which research was conducted. So it is dynamic in a way that you will not exhaustively research there. And you cannot research everybody there and his behavior. By the way, in most cases, when you conduct research, you take sample. And it is accepted that if you cannot study the entire population, you can conduct research by selecting a representative sample in quantitative research. But also in qualitative research, you can identify a few cases that you can study. So this means that it is always not possible to exhaustively study the environment together with its participants. Although some applications of the method lead to deeper understanding of the research context than others, no application, and in fact, no research approach provides full comprehension of a site and its inhabitants. Now, if you talk about inhabitants, people are changing human beings. Today, I can be a Christian, and tomorrow I'm an atheist. I'm not a Christian. Or today I'm a non-Christian, but tomorrow I repent and become a Christian. So you cannot know me. Tomorrow I value going to circus. Tomorrow I don't value it because I don't benefit anything from it. So human beings are dynamic and they continue to change. Therefore, you cannot study them and know them in totality. you can have a fair understanding of their behavior, a fair understanding of their values, a fair understanding of their characteristics. So research cannot do that for you. No matter how many variables one studies or how long one is immersed in a research context, of our variables or other variables and aspects of the context will remain unexamined, or they will change. Thus, the scientific method and indeed all types of inquiry give us a simplified version of reality. Right? It's a simplified version. And I was engaging with a UNISA student yesterday, and this student was still preparing a proposal. And the lecturer said, you have done very well in other sections, but your section on research methodology needs to be improved. Then I told the person that you must remember, even at the end of finishing your studies, you are going to pass, but don't think that you have done that research 100%. You might be there 70 to 80%. You might have done some good things. When the study leader says that you actually can be independent in conducting research, actually you understand the basic concepts, the basic principles, and the basic processes, and you were, in an extent, able to execute this research project. If you don't get it 100%, we can still pass you. Because I tell you, there is no one who has ever conducted the research 100%. And this is what we refer to when we talk about the limitations of the scientific method of conducting research. So we just have a picture and a simplified version of what the phenomena under study is. So we are saying South Africa is a violent country, or this is just what the findings are, because there are people who are inside there, like you and me, who are not thugs, who don't rob people and who don't steal, and people that are still wanting peace in our country. So it cannot be a blanket. The fact that they've conducted some studies in a specific rural area in the Limpopo, or in a specific township area in Gauteng or in Cape Town, it does not allow them to generalize that South Africa is a violent country, because they did not study everything, and that the environment changes from time to time, and human beings are actually dynamics. They're not dynamic on their own. Now, the third aspect why there are limitations is that our measuring instruments always have some degree of error. The variables we study are often proxies for the real behavior we seek to examine. For an example, even if we use a very precisely constructed multiple choice test to assess a person's values, we will likely gather information that gives us a picture of what the person believes about his or her values. However, we aren't likely to have an adequate picture of how that person acts, which may be the better reflection of the person's values. More broadly, all educational inquiry, not just the scientific method, is carried out with the cooperation of participants who agree to provide researchers with data, because educational researchers deal with human beings. They must consider the impact that they have on them, the concerns and the responsibilities of the participants. For an example, they must shelter participants from real or potential harm. This is where we refer and we talk about the clearance of your proposal or your research project by the ethics committee, when they see that you would not impact on them negatively. They must inform participants about the nature of the planned research and address the expectations of the participants. These things can limit and skew results. All these limitations will be addressed in later workshops. Research is the formal systematic application. Okay, now this is about application. Now I want to show you why you cannot, the last example, why you cannot say that this research does not have limitation. You cannot say that it is 100%. It is because, for an example, if you are collecting data from informants or research participants, they immediately become aware that you are researching and you want to complete a PhD or a master's or an honors project. Then they can then pretend to respond, or they can change the way in which they want to. They then tell you they provide you with false information. They do not speak the truth when they think that if they tell you the truth, you will not succeed in your studies, or you will write negative things about them or about their communities. So this makes These are some of the loopholes and some of the errors that we find there in the measuring instruments and in the manner in which the researcher himself or herself collect data. Because you can influence the outcomes of the data. You can even, you see, especially with the design of the data collection instrument, which was referred to here. A novice researcher, a researcher that is starting, can ask questions that are leading to respondents. And that encourages respondents to answer in a way that the researcher wants. And when you do that, then you are actually misrepresenting the findings. Then even your report is going to be skewed. Then you have unduly influenced the outcomes of the study, which is very, very bad. Katomo mute. Kamute mwananga. Please mute. So let me pause a little bit because I've touched now on the concept and I've started to talk about scientific research and some of the process, the stages in the process that might be followed. So we have started now to talk about real concept, research concepts.
Is there a prescribed number of sample that one can follow, or you can just do any sampling? It's still going to be allowed, or is there any prescribed way of sampling, of saying for you to be able to form a particular conclusion, you should have interviewed so many people, or what informs that?
There is in particularly under quantitative research, which I'm not very good at, but I noted that literature indicates to you how you can ensure that you have got a representative sample. They even go to an extent of indicating numbers. In 1,000, they will indicate sometimes do take 10%. But if you go beyond 2,000, you're 5%. They have got those suggestions. And in one of the presentations, I did present it, but I'm not very good on it because it deals with a quantitative research. But I've supported a lot of students. I've given them literature that shows guidelines on how to determine the sample size. And there are guidelines that say that. But in qualitative research, the number of informants and number of people that you interview or from who you collect data is not as important as the quality of information that they give you, because there you need in-depth information. The numbers that we are referring to are good and relevant to quantitative research, because in quantitative research, sometimes you conduct surveys. And when conducting surveys, you superficially collect a lot of information on a broader scale, a large area. That is in quantitative research. And that is the reason why the people you would be required sometimes to subject your results into statistical analysis. But if you want to be in-depth, say for instance in qualitative, you then collect in very few numbers, but you get the depth of information. But I do have literature and I do have some of the articles that say something about how how many you can collect. And in quantitative research, they also recommend that if the research population is so small, then you have got to collect data to all the respondents. Then if you've got, say for instance, 50 people as a population, you see, 50 is not a lot. You can interview everybody. When I collected data in one of the mixed methods approach, I interviewed 100 people. And there I had qualitative questions and quantitative questions. It was an embedded approach. So I think there are guidelines, and we can, you see, the most important aspect is when you decide on a number, justify why you are taking that number. And how do you justify? You read the guidelines, and somebody in an article or in a literature would have said, if you have got 300, please at least take a half of them, 150, or please take a quarter of them, say 75 or so. So that person can be cited and we can justify it in that way. But you see, as you have got leaders, study leaders, they would even guide you otherwise. The student that I was supporting yesterday, and when she started talking to me, it was last year. The study leader recommended that she must interview all people, and these people that she's going to collect data from were more than 200, 280 or 275. And I said to her, you know, you should be taking a sample, not interviewing everybody, because these people are too many. Your study population is too large. You won't finish this study, or you will collect data that you will not be able to analyze. And then they went to continue to prepare a proposal like that with a research leader. Now, yesterday while I was talking to her, she said, no, they revisited now the sampling design. And instead of saying that she must collect data from everybody, then they're revisiting, or maybe we must collect a sample. Because when she was going to collect a sample, the setting changed. Those people were no longer 280. She went there and found that the number has increased. Must she now increase with the exponential increase of the respondents? Then they are revisiting it. So I think study leaders must guide, but yourself as a student, you must study and justify that, no, I want to do it this way, because authors say that this is the correct way of finding a representative sample. And there are other criteria that must be considered when, apart from the numbers. I do have them in one of the presentation, and we can engage outside this meeting if you still want my view on it.
Just a last follow-up.
Yes.
You know, we are living within the technological times now.
Yes.
Which one is much more, because one can also generate surveys and also this using technology where you can then send out your questionnaire, and as opposed to me going physically. So which one is much more acceptable? Me sending out questionnaires to different samples, type of people, or me going there physically and giving them the questionnaire?
All of them have got cons and pros. There are good side of it in each of these. All right, if you, in a survey, in most cases, you want to collect a lot of information. No, you want to collect information from a lot of cases. Say, if you want to interview 500 people, you cannot meet them face to face. You can establish them from a database. That is a sampling frame. Your sampling frame can be a database of all the people that are using telephones in China. You sample them. You cannot go to all these houses because it will take you 5 years to finish 500 people, or it will take you 1.5 years. So the better and fastest way of doing it is to use a survey and distribute it survey through emails. Then you get them and they can respond quickly. But the challenge with it is that not all mailed questionnaires will come back. That one, I think a lot of authors are saying it. And how do you augment? So it means you can triangulate and also use another method. Say, for instance, you do the survey and you also do the face-to-face interview. Now, let me tell you the other thing, the other good thing about face-to-face interviews, because I've done these ones. There, especially with the beginning researchers, for you is better because you are advanced. Beginning researchers, you can learn a lot from face-to-face interview because you have never done research before. But when you meet a person, then you can see the context within which responses are provided. And there, you have got an opportunity to make follow-ups or to probe on questions. And that on its own is education and is upskilling your research skills. You benefit a lot. So I think triangulation can help. And the use of different approaches or different methodologies is a way in which you can augment the shortcomings from either of the approaches. So mixed methods, mixed uses of approaches or technologies, or is better. So that is what I can say. And you cannot put the other method as above the other one because all of them do have advantages. Say, for instance, you are collecting data from, you are an international student, political scientist and international political student. You are researching what is happening in Gaza. You want to understand the perspective of the Europeans. You want to understand the perspectives of the people in the Middle East and the perspectives of the people in USA. You can't travel to USA. You can't travel to Palestine. You can't travel to Europe. If you've got limited resources to travel, what do? You have a connection there, then you establish a database, then you can send questionnaires. You collect data from the Palestinians, from the Europeans, and from the USA representatives, and then you can analyze. You are seated here. That is the advantage. But you would have missed the advantage of face-to-face, but you would have been able to collect data. You see? So it depends on what you want to achieve, and but you should build in strategies to augment the shortcomings so that you don't have some shortcomings in terms of collecting the data. This is my comment. It's the initial one, and if there's follow-ups, it's fine. We can still debate it outside, and we can open books and study and make comparison, and then decide at what is better based on the research topics and the statement of problems, as well as the purpose statement of the research project. Because all of this must be streamlined. You see, the research question must determine the research method or the research design. Let's see if the data collection instrument actually matches the above. So it must be able to assist us to answer to the research question.
May I take this opportunity to thank our researchers for making the time to join us. We've had, I think, about 240 students, all in all, joining this session. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, and we are looking forward to meeting you again on Thursday.